Welcome back. I hope you're hydrated and refreshed because we got more hot topics to talk about. We're going to be talking about how big is Cyberpunk 2077. And I feel like, Boost, you may have some info on this one.
Yeah, so there's somebody who works in QA for Cyberpunk 2077, and they tweeted out something a couple of days ago, actually just over a week ago, essentially pointing out the fact that they've put in 175 hours into the game, and they said that that wasn't even them trying to 100% the game. They said they were just trying to go through the main quest line, apparently, and they put that amount of time into it. Granted, it's been said that the game's main quest line would be shorter than that of The Witcher 3, but that's pretty insane. And apparently, there's going to be a ton of side missions in Cyberpunk 2077. And then Game Informer, who I'm reading an article from here, says that in their hands-on time with the game, it took them about 4 hours just to get to the beginning credits of Cyberpunk.
Wow.
4 hours. They said that some people were even reporting up to 6 hours to get through those opening credits, and that's just the starting point of the game. And I guess my overall question here, obviously specifically to Cyberpunk 2077, how does everyone feel about something like that? But in general, do we think that games being like 50, 60, 70 hours long should be seen as this like extraordinary, amazing, good thing? Because for me, I don't know what it is, but I'm starting to like.
I'm getting exhausted.
Turn me off from games.
I'm getting exhausted just thinking about.
Yeah.
What was it? 170 hours? 150?
175. Now, it's worth noting as well that this comes from somebody who is QA at Cyberpunk, working on Cyberpunk.
Right.
And basically, what that means is they play the game to try and find every single tiny little issue with it. And so through that, there's probably a lot of stress testing that they're doing, really trying to push the limits of the game, trying to break it so that they can fix whatever bugs are there. So in that case, maybe that's where a lot of the hours come from. But yeah, 175 hours without trying to finish the main story or without trying to 100% is crazy.
I think of, games, the game that like really broke me for a period, Persona 5. I love it. It's beautiful. It's very stylistic. It's like one of the best games I've played ever. But it is so goddamn long. Like it is 100 hours. I was just looking it up to complete. And that caused a huge issue with me because I think after the first 30, I was like, okay, I need a break. I'm gonna step away. Things start to get a little repetitive. Okay. There's too many palaces. I just can't do it anymore because it's the same story over and over again. I step away and I'm like, man, I wish there was a game like Persona 5. Oh crap, I never finished that game. Let me hop back in. I hop back in, I play another like 30 hours and I'm like, wow, I'm exhausted again. I need to take another break. Like this becomes a triathlon where like I'm just trying to get to the finish line and it just is not as like rewarding at the end because it was such a long journey. Now that I've beat the game, I could look back and be like, haha, like I beat that game. That game's like the best ever. Because I'm not going through the pain of working my way through it. So no, just because you're long, it doesn't make you a great game. Although it does depend on what the game's offering, right? Like, I believe, with a game like Cyberpunk, it's this huge open world where you could really explore all these different like corners and like alleyways and like characters that live in this world. And they put so much work into that it will make it interesting to see, but not 170 hours interesting.
Yeah.
Yeah, the game that broke me, ironically, was The Witcher 3. I put in close to 200 hours just into the main game, not even going into like the DLC. And it felt like work at that point. But the only thing that I'll give CD Projekt Red credit for is that it was compelling all the way through. At no point was I was like, oh man, I'm doing these fetch quests that don't really amount to anything. It's just repetitive. No, I was engaged the entire time around. Typically, if a studio came out and they're like, I'm going to give you a 170-hour game, that would be a huge turnoff for me. But the fact that it's CD Projekt Red and the fact that I know that they've been working nearly a decade on this game, I kind of want to just see it all the way through and and give them my time, because I know that it's going to be quality. I know that it's going to be something I haven't played ever before. Another game that comes to mind is like Assassin's Creed Odyssey. I put in a lot of time into that game too, over 100 hours. But at the same time, like, that is a game I've played before. I've played Assassin's Creed games many times before. At no point was I going through that game saying, man, I've never done this before. This is brand new to me. So I give CD Projekt Red a little bit of credit here, allowing them to make a game this big.
Yeah.
Yeah, just to add on to Camille's point, it is getting a little exhausting, because I think the last game that I think I fully fleshed out finished was Legend of Zelda Twilight Princess, and I feel like I'm thinking
how
back
many? Wait, whoa! Time out! Where have you been for all the Legend of Zelda games after that?
I get close to finishing, but I never finish. And I think the thing is that because I feel like there is an emphasis nowadays with games where it's like the longer the game is, the better it is, the more replayability, all that stuff, right? But I feel like a lot of developers are missing out on the aspect that one of the best feelings of playing a game is actually finishing the game, right? So I feel like the last time that I've actually finished a game is crazy. Like, I think the one that exhausted me was Borderlands 3, I think. And then I think I just got overwhelmed by like all the side quests, all these things. And it was just kind of getting hard to follow, that I kind of just wanted it to finish at one point, right? And it's like, so yeah, I do understand. Like, Cyberpunk is a great game. I feel like having the appeal of 167 hours should be something that No Man's Sky should have had, like, from the get-go, right? But like, for a game like Cyberpunk, I'm not too sure if that's really something you should be like putting on this like
pedestal.
Like pedestal.
Yeah.
Like, yeah, this is why our game's so good, right? Because it depends on what you're doing during those hours. So, yeah. Mm-hmm.
That's a really interesting point. I know, Caboose, you kind of put the question out there, but what are your thoughts on this one?
Yeah, I mean, there are a lot of games that I've definitely logged quite a bit of hours into. I mean, if we're talking single player experiences, like, I put a good amount of time into Red Dead Redemption 2. And I don't know, I guess it's hard to explain, because there are instances like Red Dead Redemption 2 where I am down to put 100 hours into it. I'm down to do everything that game has to offer because I am compelled. But I feel like when I hear that somebody's put 175 hours into Cyberpunk 2077 and they haven't even, like, they're not even trying to 100% the game. They're just trying to go through the main quest line, you know, they're just kind of playing along. Or when I hear that it's 4 to potentially 6 hours just to get to the opening credits, it's like, please.
Yeah, like, imagine your friend talks about Cyberpunk and tells you, like, yo, dude, this game's sick. It takes 6 hours to get to the credits. Not like the beginning opening scenes, right? And you're like, do I really want to be doing that, right?
I guess it all depends on, like, when you're actually playing the game, what it's like, because some games, when you're going through that 6 hours to get to the opening credits, it can be enthralling, it can be very engaging, but some games do just overstay their welcome. Like, I don't know. You know what example perfectly encapsulates what I'm trying to talk about here? It's Death Stranding. That is a game that completely overstays its welcome. That game just doesn't know when to quit it. Doesn't know when to wrap things up. It just keeps going.
Kojima's really a mind. Okay, he's a storyteller.
Oh, yeah. It's opening cutscene. I'm watching a movie sitting there. I haven't even played the game. I'm watching this opening cutscene. I finished playing the game and I'm watching another cutscene for 2 hours. Like, I'm ready to be done with this. Like, that's one of the best examples I can bring up about a game that really sticks around too long.
You hurt me so much, Caboose. I am literally crying now. You guys can see the tears. But I will give you this, okay, Caboose? When I talk to people who are kind of like, oh, I don't want to play Death Stranding. It's a walking sim. Like, it's so, it looks so boring. I do preference my sell to them. Like, I'm trying to sell the game to them by saying, stick in there for 10 hours. And it really, like, it's really good. Right? And I understand, like, with what Paul was saying, like, would you, like, that's a bad way to sell a game. now I know what I was doing wrong. That this is what I was doing wrong to you, Caboose. I shouldn't went in saying just stick in there for 10 hours. I should have sold you on the other side.
Imagine telling someone just play it for almost half a day and then it'll start getting good. Like, imagine that being the sales pitch.
Yeah.
There are some games that like look at Spider-Man. Spider-Man Miles Morales is the perfect example of a game that doesn't want to overstay its welcome. It's like, let's give you this small, condensed, easy to digest story, and let's get out of here when we're ready to wrap it up. You know, that game's like 6 to 7 hours long. And some people might, that this is another thing too, on the opposite side of the spectrum, when I see people complain about a game being a little bit shorter, it's like, trust me, a game like Spider-Man Miles Morales does not need to be 30 or 40 hours. It doesn't. You know, at that point, you start to lose some of the nuance of the character development and some of the story beats that they are providing for you, because for 25 hours later, you're like, wait, what happened 13 hours ago in the story that I'm supposed to now be picking up on in this cutscene? You know, a game like that doesn't need to overstay its welcome. It just give you those 7 hours, enjoyable 7 hours, action packed, and then wrap things up when it's time to.
And it's interesting because I remember when we did talk about Spider-Man, I kind of was on that side where I was like, man, I just wish the game was longer. Like it feels like it needs to be longer. And I know this is exactly what Insomniac was doing. They know the fans want it to be longer so they could come out with another one. We could see Miles again, another title. But as a person buying a game, I want it to be longer. And, you know, if it doesn't have that price difference, so like Spider-Man Miles Morales is cheaper because it is a shorter game. But a lot of games don't have that price difference. So then you go into it thinking like you're going to get this fully fleshed 30 to 40 hour game or story, and then you're only left with 15 hours and you paid, you know, $80 for it. It's like, what's the point at that? You know, like, what is the point? Now with 175 hours, it's like, maybe I should be paying more. I have questions. Why am I not paying more? How much did they pay Keanu Reeves? If there's 175 hours in this game, how much of Keanu Reeves am I going to see? You know, like I think usually we gravitate to the hours spent with a game as the value of a game.
Right. No, for sure. And I think when you look at a game like God of War, that game was only 40 hours at most if you were trying to
35 or something.
Yeah. And I think that's like one of the best games we've seen this whole generation, but it still costs the exact same as, say, Red Dead Redemption 2, which was arguably still just as good, but it was a longer game. So I do think that there's a give and take there, but I do agree that I think moving forward, I would love to see developers come in and say, I'm going to give you $100 game, but it's going to be well worth your money. I would love to see that.
Let me put it in this perspective. I could go watch, let's say, like, you know, if a film like The Irishman was in theaters, which I think it did, had like a limited.
Oh my God.
So 3+ hour movie. Let's say I went to go see that in theaters versus like a movie that was an hour and a half in theaters. I will pay the same price of admission for both movies.
That's true.
But when I go watch The Irishman, I'll pay for a 4-hour nap. When I go watch an hour and a half movie, I'll pay to watch this easy to digest, fun, quick movie that wraps up when it's time to, and that'll be money well spent for me.
Yes. It's
and in this analogy, The Irishman is what, Death Stranding?
Hey, whoa. Back off.
I'm just asking him. I'm not that I agree. I'm just asking.
Category. Don't even put that out to the universe. That ain't right. Norman Reedus isn't some old man trying to find his youth. Don't do that to him.
Oh God.
But yeah, like it comes back to this question: what do gamers value in a game? Like, what is the value going into that $80 price tag? Right. So for myself, it is that experience like that you would get out of God of War, Spider-Man, Miles Morales, Spider-Man PS4, The Last of Us Part 2. Like it's for me, because I love story, you're getting that. But Paul, you tapped out on Twilight Princess. I thought Twilight Princess's story was great. So for you, what is that value, especially because you are PC focused?
Well, I think for me, this is just the way I personally play games, but all the games that I've dumped hours and hours into are games that don't really have a storyline to begin with and kind of cap out after you finish 20 games, right? Like I write card games for Squad, right? I play a bunch of card games. You finish a card game within 15 minutes and you get the full experience from start to end, right? I play games like Overwatch and Valorant that finish within the hour and then you get that full experience. And it's more of like you're getting better at the game, but you don't have to experience this whole campaign. So I don't know. I feel like Caboose really touched on the point here. Like if I didn't get pitched, hey, 6 hours is gonna get you to start the game. If I got pitched, hey, 6 hours is gonna get you the game start to finish, and it's gonna be the best 6 hours of your life. I think that type of game would be when I start investing into like these type of like story-based games. I actually finished, what was that story-based game that it was a Telltale series.
Tales from the Borderlands.
No, it
Walking
was
Dead.
Wolf Among Us.
Wolf Among Us. That was a great game. I finished that within a week, right? And then like I got the story in, I got the experience, and that was like great. So I feel like for me, like quality and what's in the game is what I would need for players like me, I guess.
And you know what's interesting? What's not in this game is multiplayer. So really, what is this QA? Like, what are you doing to spend 175 hours?
Cyberpunk's not multiplayer at all, huh?
It's not part of the
game.
So it's supposed to be getting a multiplayer, but it's not. So I'm really scared because it kind of is hinting that it may drag on.
Yeah.
Like
for sure.
Yeah.
And I think there's a term that gets tossed around in like the industry a lot. It's called dev math, which is like the time frame of which like a developer says a game's gonna take to complete. Essentially, a lot of games like they'll come out and be like, "This is an 80-hour experience for a developer," but for a gamer who's just like running through and doing their own thing, those 80 hours could be cut down to like 50. So when I see like 170 hours of a developer meticulously going in, interacting with each character, letting them do all their dialogue and everything, that's not how everyone plays. Some people just go in and have fun and whatever. So that it can equate to like maybe 70 hours or 40 hours. So I don't really take that. I kind of take it with a grain of salt at the end of the day.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
I'm curious to see like when Cyberpunk comes out. Actually, who's picking it up? I'm picking it up.
Right here. Yeah.
I'm probably getting it. I don't know when I'm going to play it though. Like I'm pretty sure I'm going to get it. I just don't know when I'm going to put the time into it. I'm not sure when exactly that'll happen, but I'm going to play it.
Paul, you're iffy about it?
I'm lucky that I have a brother that buys games like this, so I usually I usually get the full experience like watching him doing it. So so I think I'll see how that goes first.
So we'll have to compare the three of us and Caboose. Whenever you get to the game, we'll have to compare our times in terms of how much hours we're spending with the game and if it's enjoyable when the game releases, because I think that'll be interesting to see a game that's like kind of had this story of like 175 hours a QA was able to spend in the game, if that's actually worth the time and the experience, right?